I mean, we have people from Australia on Healthcare Unfiltered. Whoever said that Healthcare Unfiltered does not go international, national, overseas, underseas, everywhere. We're going down under to Australia, and I have two amazing celebrities. Like, what do I call? Like, I'm starstruck at this point. So, welcome to the show, Kim Morrison and Cyndi O'Mara. And I don't have an Australian accent. So I'm gonna do my best by hiding my American accent. Welcome to Healthcare Unfiltered.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
Dad.
It's your first time on the show, and you have to earn your second time. So let's see how you do on this. But look, I had the opportunity to be on your show. You also do an amazing show, and you've been very instrumental and helpful with my first book, Toxic Exposure, and the second book, The Cancer Journey. So thank you for that. But for folks who don't know you, we need to do a proper introduction and tell them who you are. Cyndi, let's start with you.
Oh, I'm a nutritionist and I have been for 44 years. But when I went to study my Bachelor of Science, I disagreed entirely with the whole nutrition program. I was to become a dietitian. I had done anthropology at the University of Colorado in Boulder, and that really set me on a path of what the human body needed for food. So I kind of went against the grain, decided not to become a dietitian, finished my degree in nutrition, went on and did 2 more years of cutting up cadavers, human anatomy, pathology, histology, embryology, you know, the ologies. And then decided I knew what the human body needed and went out and just started consulting as a nutritionist. Then created a company called Changing Habits, which was foods and programs and protocols. Then created an education program because people and doctors and chiropractors and osteos and physios all had no training in nutrition. And so I created a 12-month internationally certified program to help not only the layperson, but also our professionals do nutrition. And I also help young entrepreneurs create product. So get the ingredients in, help them formulate it, and do everything that I did, 20 years ago to help these incredible young entrepreneurs bring a healthy, organic, well-formulated, real ingredient to market. So that's me in a nutshell, and I'm a grandma of three, one on the way, so four soon. We have a podcast, Kim and I, called Up for a Chat, which is over 400 shows. We've been going, 10 years plus. And yeah, that's about it. I'm married, have been married for 30 something years. I don't even know. I've lost track.
Yeah, that's that the happiness just like made you just lose track. But you've been nutritionist for 44 years, so you started at the age of one, which is really
Thank you.
amazing. Great work. This like, baby genius. But you had your initial degree in the US?
I started pre-med at the University of Colorado in Boulder. And I was doing the pre-med, but I was allowed electives. And so I picked the electives on the lecturer, not the subject.
Mm.
And I was told about three incredible lecturers. One was anthropology and cultural anthropology. The other one was astronomy, so the study of stars, which has been an incredible part of my life because I love to go out hiking and I can navigate by the stars at night. Not that I navigate a lot at night, but I understand where they are. And the other one I did was the study of words. So I understood where words came from. And I think the thing that really got me was allopathic, meaning all passive. And, we go to our doctor to get diagnosed. We take something to take something away. And I wanted responsibility in healthcare. So I learned a lot in the study of words and an incredible lecturer. So those three electives actually put me on the path of nutrition. So that's why I decided not to go and finish medicine. I just did pre-med and then came home to do dietetics, which was even worse. So yeah.
Now, anytime I'm going to have a nutritionist or somebody with diet and everything, you're going to be asked tough questions. Are you ready for that today?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Most
I like that. So, Kim, how about you?
Well, I'm completely different to our beautiful Cyndi, probably on the other side of it, being an athlete. Always wanted to represent New Zealand, my original home birth country, in netball, and ended up running for Australia in ultra marathons. And it was during that time that I really got to understand the importance of nutrition for performance, but also got to understand mindset and how, when we are really challenged, really tired, or feeling very vulnerable, how weakened we feel in the mind, or how strange these voices are that come into your head. So I became very interested in human psyche, understanding temperaments, looking at what makes us think the way we think, and also really appreciating that the more you care and love and look after yourself, the better you operate in life. So you are able to learn better, you're able to function better, you're able to move better. And so I guess if you look at Cyndi and I, she's kind of like the outside, inside sort of story around nutrition and making our cells function well. And I probably come from the point of, well, what makes us tick? How come we really get along with some people and don't get along with others? How do we get the best out of ourselves by getting rid of our limiting beliefs or things that don't make us feel good, in order to actually take action and focus on the things that we do want in our life? Because many of us are motivated to do something, to get away from something. Just like Cyndi said, some of us take on healthcare protocols to not be sick. But I'd love to encourage people to focus on healthcare protocols to look towards what they want more of, and that is to be well, energetic, vibrant, effervescent, and actually function at their best. So I probably really dive more into the mental, emotional aspects, and then have a real focus on wellness using essential oils, home self-care rituals, and really being the best that we can be. I have a philosophy that if the everything functions perfectly, if the woman of the house is happy and healthy, life runs smoothly for everyone else. So I probably focus a lot of my attention on women being well and healthy and being the hub of the home.
You're the psychologist of the two, kind of.
I'd like to think that.
So, so,
Didn't
so
do
did
university.
did you compete for the Australian team or the New Zealand team in Olympics or like sports or what?
I ran for Australia. The first time I ran for Australia was in the UK, where I set 8 Australian indoor records and went on to set a world record for being the youngest female to run 100
Oh my
miles in less than
gosh.
24 hours. And so I guess that's where the mindset really came in, because I got to meet the real me. And the real me whinged a lot and spent 4 hours off the track complaining that I didn't have the right food, or that it was cold, or it was tough. And I think that's where I really learnt the art of challenge, and that instead of us getting or trying to get away from challenges altogether, is to actually embrace, embody them, and then work our way through them. Because ultimately, all of us, when we look back on the challenges in our life, be it health, physical, nutritional, chemical, emotional, when we look back on them and who we are today, we can almost be grateful for them, because it's made us who we are today. And so, yeah, I love to focus on how to really use the mindset, the challenges, and the things that we've been through in our life to become a platform to leap into greatness, rather than fall into the abyss of not feeling good about ourselves and self-loathing.
No, it's that's why I think listeners and viewers now realize why I'm starstruck. So that's introduction. Now, people, you understand the situation. Now, Cyndi, how did you meet Kim?
Oh,
Because your
I have to tell
intersection,
you,
because I'm trying to think
yeah,
there it must have been something that you met each
yeah.
other.
So Kim came into my life at a really important time, and there is a story of the meeting, and probably Kim's the best to tell that story. But Kim came into my life. My sister passed away, and a couple of years before she passed away, and she wasn't well during that couple of years. She died of esophageal cancer. Um, I Kim came into my life, and it's almost like as my sister left me, my soul sister arrived, and we have been. She's everything to me. Like, we are soul sisters. A lot of people think we are sisters when we go out in public. They go, "Are you two sisters?" We go, "Not really, not blood, but we're soul." But I think Kim does a better rendition of how we met.
Kim, give me the flavor of how you both met. I can't wait to hear the story.
So a client of mine back in New Zealand, I was looking after him physically and emotionally. He had Crohn's disease, and him and his wife were traveling over to Australia. And when they came back, they both said, "We just met someone that she's like your sister." And I said, "Who?" And so this is back in the days where we didn't have a lot of internet, but I looked up Cyndi O'Meara because they'd been to one of her talks. And then I ordered her book and her cassette tape via fax. And so when I got it, I actually put the tape cassette into my car, but it didn't work. So I faxed her and said, "I'm really sorry, but this tape recorder or this tape cassette's not working." She said, "Don't worry, I'll send you another one." And the second one didn't work. And then she said via fax, "Don't worry, I'm coming to Auckland in New Zealand." And that's when we met. And the minute we met, I don't think we've been quiet ever since. And it was all because one of my clients came and heard her speak here on the coast and felt like we were soul sisters. So it was actually an introduction by someone who thought the two of us were very similar.
That's really amazing. So Kim, so you also like you have your own kind of consulting firm where people reach out to you to get the emotional, spiritual need that they have. I mean, how is that like seems like Cyndi does more focus on the nutrition and the well-beings and things like that. You focus on the
Mindset.
mindset.
Mm.
But but do you work together on these, or you have like your own separate clients or people or patients, and she has her own, and or is it that you have the same entity and people just talk to you both, and each one has a different focus?
We both have a separate business, but we come together with our mutual podcast Up for a Chat. And often Cyndi will invite me to speak at her events, and I'll often invite Cyndi to speak at mine. And people are often starstruck whenever I have Cyndi turn up. They just cannot believe she's walking into the room. She is considered one of Australia's most outspoken and some would say controversial, but I think all of us listening to this would say, actually, no, she's just talking our language, which is around the focus on real food. And I'd like to think that I come from a place of understanding that we all have these emotions, but it's how do we allow the emotions to get the best of us? Because ultimately, the beliefs that we have can actually form how we operate in the world based on our values. And when they align, we actually present to in our best of our ability. But if our values don't align with what it is that we're trying to do, for instance, if we said, I really want to be healthy, I want to eat well, but we go to Tim Tam Island all the time. We sit on Biscuit Island or Cake Island and we keep going there. Or we ultimately can understand that there's a conflict in values. And so maybe connection or camaraderie means more to us than health. And so I really like to dive deep into understanding what makes people tick and then how to bring those values into alignment with their greatest wishes. And let's face it, you can have 1,000 problems, but until you have a health problem, you then realize you only have one. And so I guess that's where we work together, is that health is your greatest asset. It is the absolute number one fundamental thing that you cannot put a price on. And so if Cyndi's teaching us how to be healthy, I then come in with how to believe in yourself to stay focused, to be healthy for life. It's not just an 8-week program or a 10-week reset. What we love to teach is how to teach people to do this: food rituals, health rituals, self-care rituals for life.
Yeah. I call usually health the common equalizer, because it doesn't matter where you are. When you are hit with a health problem, this is really where you become vulnerable. Nothing else matters. Cyndi, how did you decide on starting a podcast? Like, how did this come about where you decide to do a podcast, which I've had the honor, thank you for inviting me on, but how did this come about?
We had started something called Awaken the Change Within, along with another girl. There were 3 of us, and we would do seminars and have hundreds of people come and listen to the 3 of us talk. And we all spoke on different aspects. And just one day we started talking about doing a podcast. But we didn't know how to do it. We didn't know much about it. This was years ago. Like, we didn't know much about it. And by the way, with Awaken the Change Within, we, and I think the podcast was the impetus for it too, we would take people around the world hiking. So we've been to Peru, we've been to New Zealand, we've been to Africa, and Kim and I are doing one in May in Australia, along something called the Great Ocean Road. So we take people and really challenge them with not only physical, but also mental challenges. As Kim always says to me, 80% mental, isn't it, Kim? 20%
90.
physical.
90.
I've just started running and it's hilarious because I've got that mind that's going, oh, I'm doing really well. No, I'm not. I think I'll just turn left. I'll leave. So it's really quite funny, this mental thing, because it's really, it pushes. So anyway, I flew to Perth, which is on the other side of Australia. It's like going from LA to New York. And I flew to Perth and I was speaking at an event and a man came up to me who they were doing a podcast called The Wellness Guys, and asked if I would like to be on their, they had an arm called, what was the
Wellness Couch.
The Wellness Couch, that's right. And these were the wellness guys, and they wanted me to be one of the people. And I said, well, I don't want to do it by myself, but I'd love to do it with Kim Morrison and Karen Smith. And that's how it started. And we became we're on the Wellness Couch. We're on a fairly big platform. And we were the second on the Wellness Couch. So the boys were first, and then the three girls. There were three boys, and then there were three girls that came onto it. And that's where we started. We just started with a phone, like we had this upside down in a cup, and we sat round it. And that was the beginning of our podcast. And we've had some incredible guests. You're one of them. I got so much out of your cancer journey. I actually have friends that have just had their mother diagnosed with cancer and they've ordered your book. I said, you have to order Chatty's book.
Yeah,
so
thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, no, I really, we've had some incredible people. So that's how we started. Then over COVID, we put a hiatus on it. We just felt that we were very controversial in the things that we wanted to say, and we knew we'd be cancelled if we continued. So we kind of shut our mouths and did our own thing for about 3 years, Kimmy. I think it was 3. And then our third girl decided not to come back with us, but we get so much out of this. We learn so much. We interview the most incredible people from all over the world.
Well, you have a great podcast and a great platform. And you know what? It's okay to be controversial, in my opinion. I think that the idea that people are not willing to listen to a different view than their own is not acceptable, right? People don't need to agree with everything, but they should be willing to listen and debate and discuss and all of this. But tell viewers and listeners of mine about your book. I know it's an older one, but tell them about it.
Well, I started back in the 1990s. I wrote a book called Changing Habits, Changing Lives. No publisher really wanted it, so I published it myself. It was called, like I said, Changing Habits, Changing Lives. And I sold 14,000 copies over an 18-month period. Yeah. So I went to bestseller. And of course, then every publisher wanted me. So I ended up going with Penguin, and I had a 50-year contract with Penguin. And I updated the book and updated the book. And then we just updated the book about 3 years ago. And it's called Lab to Table. Stop being a lab rat and start making better choices for your table. And it's a book about food and what they've done to our food. So I start with breakfast. So I start with breakfast cereals. I go through salts and dairies and what's a flavor, what's synthetic biology, how has it invaded our food space, and what is it doing to our health? Most people don't even know this. And in Australia, food labeling is so archaic, and I think the US is just as bad. So I saw a new oil in the US. And so I read the patent on it and looked it up, found out it says it's GMO free, but it's made with genetically modified microbes. It started as a biodiesel and now it's an edible oil. And I just find that people are being duped by these types of food. And that's just one food. And I look at any new food that comes out, I go to it, I look at the patent, I figure out exactly where it's coming from. I warn my public and say, if you eat this, you're contributing to this, this, and this, and it's going to do this, this, and this to your health. Or we don't know the consequences. Let's not be part of that experiment and be a lab rat. let's give it time and decide later. So I'm very much, because of my anthropological background and my cultural anthropology, I'm very much based it on historical foods. What did we eat? Did we eat margarine or did we eat butter? Did we have, whole milk or did we do low fat? Were we eating meats or were we vegan? So it's very much based on anthropological principles. And the second principle it's based on is the principle of vitalism. So when I learned allopathic means all passive, I just went, there has to be something else out there that's not all passive, that makes you take responsibility. And vitalism tells you that you have an innate intelligence. Give it the right ingredients, and it will be the healthiest it can possibly be. And take away interference. So my father was very much of this ilk back in the 50s when I was born in 1960, and he was very much of that ilk. And so I was brought up in what we call a vitalistic lifestyle, where my father fed us the best he could. He would not allow any interference of medications, so no antibiotics unless we were in a life-threatening situation, or no Panadols unless the pain was so bad, then of course that would be given. So I sit before you at 64 and I've never ever had a medication. No antibiotics, no Panadols, no, and believe me, I've broken bones, but my father taught me how to deal with them, how to deal with pain. But don't get me wrong, if I'm in a life-threatening situation, I'm there, I'm with medicine. But I've been very fortunate to be brought up in a very different lifestyle in a different way. And so that's what I teach in nutrition. I don't look at nutrition for its carbohydrates, fats, proteins, nutrient value. I look at it for its vitalistic value. So let's take butter, just for an example, so everyone gets the idea of my book. So butter may be 50% saturated fat, and science has deemed saturated fat to be bad, but is it? That's a question we need to look at. What was the purpose of saturated fat in the diet? But what's the other 50%? Well, it's omega-3s. It's got factor X. It's got butyrate, which is one of the only foods that has butyrate. The rest of the butyrate has to be made by the gut and the bacteria in the gut. It has other factors to it that synchronistically work incredibly together in a vitalistic way. So I teach in my book about food, but under the principles and guiding principles of vitalism and anthropological principles. So, and in 44 years, I have to tell you, it hasn't guided me wrong. Even now I'm looking at quantum biology. Everybody's talking about quantum biology, which is about, sunshine and activities and light and EMFs and all of that. And I'm thinking, well, that's the principles of the lifestyle that Kim and I lead. We're up early in the morning, we watch the sunrise. I go in the ocean, she doesn't. She runs, I ocean swim. But we live these principles, and
I could imagine that there's obviously, you said a lot, but some of what you said obviously would be considered controversial. The fact that I wouldn't really take any medicine at all unless it's a life-threatening illness. Listen, if I have my migraines, give me the goddamn medicine. I can't deal with my migraines. I get migraines all the time, and I need my Advil. I need my ibuprofen so it just goes away, because then I get so much pain, I get nauseous. But we'll talk about this. We're going to go over some of these things. One of the reasons of having you on the show is that we're getting into the holiday season, and we're going to emerge from the holiday season. And I think during the holiday seasons always is the heightened thing about diet, nutrition. I want to lose weight. I want to be in shape and do all of these things, the New Year resolutions and everything that you hear about. Is that the time when you get like peak people just calling you and dialing you in and just like help me get through that? Because there's that element, but there's also, frankly, the element of, it's a tough time for people. It's considered one of the stressful times. People get depressed sometimes, and there's a lot of things that go during the holiday season until you emerge, hopefully, on the other side. I guess, share with us what happens in your experience during that time from a people perspective, from a patient perspective, what type of things you have to take people through, because you deal more on the mental side. And then I want to ask Cyndi, the type of things that she has to deal with from the nutritional side. Of course, one of the things, Kim, that you have to do is you have to get people, to do the things that they promise themselves to do, the New Year resolutions. I stopped doing those, by the way. I'm never able to fulfill them. Maybe I need to be your patient.
Oh, let's face it, New Year's resolutions are kind of like a little beautiful goal to set, but you're right. Actually, 90% of people don't follow through on their New Year's resolutions. And it's usually within 28 days that they go off the wagon, and often even 14 days. So we start off with a hiss and a roar. We're all excited. We want to do something well. Leading into Christmas or holiday seasons or any time of period that we get off, some people can get very focused 6 to 8 weeks out because they want to fit a certain dress or look good at the beach or whatever. But then they get on holiday and it all goes out the window and they almost consciously expect to come home 5 kilos heavier. It's almost like a badge of honor. Whereas Cyndi and I come from the point of view of you can have a holiday, you can have a great time, you can eat amazing foods. It's just making good choices. But every one of us has a choice, but again, based on your values, what's important to you. And I'd also like to add, based on the people that you surround yourself with, will probably determine the choices that you make. So if you're around a whole family that love to drink and eat really high sugar processed foods, and it's kind of like gluttony and go for it and get in there, you're probably going to go down the same path. But if you're like Cyndi and I, where we decided to actually do a protocol, a health protocol, a very strict one, we decided to do it over the festive season one year. Everyone was eating, desserts and beautiful food. It was always beautiful food, but we chose not to eat anything that was outside this protocol. And as Cyndi said, I've had 60 odd Christmases where I can eat whatever I want. Why would we not challenge ourselves? And I think that's the real key that we both love, is to challenge oneself, is to constantly step outside one's comfort zone. We want to push the body. Coming from an athlete's point of view, you don't improve unless you really push yourself or go into a place of challenging oneself and sticking to something. So one of the principles I truly believe in is self-discipline. But discipline is stronger than willpower. So we can have willpower and go and try and do something, but that fades out very, very quickly. And psychologically, we know that if you don't align those values with your beliefs and therefore take action, you ain't going to stick to it. So I guess where I come from is giving you a real reason why. And often people go, oh, why? Because I want to fit a better dress, or why? I just want to feel better. But if we actually get to the bottom of it, what if it was to play with your grandchildren? What if it meant that in years to come, you could kick a ball with them, that you're not sitting in a wheelchair or a rest home? What if you could actually run a marathon with your grandchild? Imagine that. So we kind of come from the angle of, what if you could look at anything other than what the status quo says? And from my humble opinion, if I can help you get rid of those limiting beliefs, actually set a goal with an end plan, but make the goal part of the bigger picture, then ultimately you are going to live a life of constantly pushing, challenging, and also honoring yourself, but doing it with love, doing it with care, not punishment, not discipline that you're bad, but doing it because you actually really value the 50 trillion cells that make up your body, and you want to look after them and you want to make sure that they're operating at their best. Because I remember asking you, what is cancer? And you said cancer is cells behaving badly. So we want to help you understand that your cells can behave goodly, if that's a word.
I like goodly. So Cyndi, let's go over, some of the nuggets of that nutritional program that just Kim alluded to a little bit while ago. So, I don't know. I mean, first of all, I think that in order to convince people to follow any type of program, it has to be practical. I mean, it has to be practical. So I'm just going to throw something at you, and then we're going to go through some of the things you'd like to share about the program. But as an example, it was always challenging for me to make my own type of lunch that I need to do at home, so I could take it with me, so I could have the lunch. If I'm going to have lunch in the office when I'm so busy, I get like 10 minutes here because I never had, honestly, a normal humane schedule. I actually don't eat lunch now, but when I did, it was always easier for me. You know what? I'll just grab a quick sandwich because I'm between patients. I just don't have the time, all of these things. So I wanted to give us a little bit of these nuggets pertaining to the nutrition program, keeping in mind the practicality of some people's schedules, especially when they're very stressed on time.
Mhm. I think more than just the protocol, because there's lots of protocols out there, there's lots of diets out there. For me, it's about, as Kim says, Kim does this incredible self-love circle. And whenever you bounce out of the self-love circle, how do you get back into it? And one of them is that self-discipline. And for me, the more educated I become about what they're doing to our food and who's doing it to our food, the more likely I am to not want to buy that food and not want to support that company. So I'm not just about the health of me, but the health of the planet and the animals that live on it and everything else. So I guess, when you have a conviction like that, when you go, well, I'm not prepared to support those companies that are making our children sick. And, in America at the moment, we're watching with big wide eyes as to what is happening over there with regards to your health and children's health. Like, it's over 50% of your kids that are sick and have got chronic disease. In Australia, we're at 48% that are sick with chronic disease. Am I prepared to allow my grandchildren to be part of that lab rat race that is happening right now, and allowing them to consume those foods? So why I started in education was, perhaps if through the book I can educate people and realize that these foods that they're eating are making them sick, giving them heart disease and diabetes and chronic disease. We know that that is part of it. Then perhaps they will go, well, everybody wants to know what to do. Who am I? I'm one person. How can I help the world? Well, you can help it by looking after yourself, looking after this incredible body that we've been given. So rather than discussing the protocol, because it was a tough protocol, wasn't it, Kim? It was life-changing, I have to tell you. It was the most life-changing thing I've ever done. And I added it to my, I guess, things that I got people to do. And we've had thousands of people do this protocol now, and it is life-changing. So I was turning 52 at that stage. I was getting aches and pains. I was getting migraines. I was getting a tightness in my throat. I was putting on weight. I was doing all of these things. And I came across this very old protocol, 1970s, 80s US protocol. And I thought, I'm going to give it a go. And it was Christmas time. It was December. I think I started November 28th. And it was a good 4 to 6 week program that you did. And then you were taught lessons through it. So I did the protocol. I got rid of every ache and pain I ever had. I've never had a migraine since I did this protocol.
What are you going to tell us what the protocol is, though?
It's called the Fat Loss Protocol, and it's under Changing Habits. It's under the website Changing Habits. So I did this whole thing, lost 9 kilos of weight in 3 weeks. Now, you can't do that. In the first week, I lost 4.5 kilos. So that's not fat loss, that's inflammation, that's water. That's like my ankles blown up. I put water there, but I had inflammation all over my body. That's why I was aching and paining. So got rid of all of that. I never had another migraine, never had another headache in 12 years, So this protocol changed my life completely. And Kim saw me starting it in the first week, and I'd lost 4.5 kilos, and I was jumping out of my skin and feeling amazing. She said, right, I'm coming on board. So she starts at December the 7th. And even Christmas Day we were together.
So just like, I mean, broad strokes, what does the protocol involve? Like, if I'm to follow it, like, what do I have to do?
There's only 2 food groups really you're allowed, and that is meat. And some vegetarians try and do this, and they can do it. Kim is part vegetarian. She doesn't eat red meat, but she eats fish and chicken. So it is meat and vegetables, and mainly above ground vegetables. And your energy, the calories are reduced dramatically. So you go into a state of ketosis,
So that's the keto diet. That's the keto diet.
It's one way of getting into ketosis because we're still eating carbohydrates, but it's less calories. So you can go into ketosis in many ways. You can go into it by fasting. You can go by limiting calories. You can go into it by not eating carbohydrates and just doing fat and proteins. So this was allowing proteins, making sure that you keep your muscle weight, but getting rid of a lot of foods that might cause inflammation. Then after you do that 3 to 4 week period, you then go into the reintroduction of food. And I reintroduced food slowly, and I got to where I ate my bread that I cooked and I made myself, and I gained 1 kilo overnight. You can't do that. You can't put 1 kilo of fat on. So that was inflammation, and my sore back came back. And all my aches and pains came back, and I went, hang on, what is wrong with my bread? And so then I took a deep dive into it for 2 years and realized what they were doing to our wheat in agriculture, and I did a documentary. I created a documentary that went on Netflix in the US called What's with Wheat. And it explained what has happened to wheat and why so many more people have gluten intolerances, non-celiac gluten sensitivities, celiac disease, and all the problems we're now having with it. And it was due to the growing practices and the refining practices and so much more. So that protocol, in my way of thinking, was for Kim and I, individually, an incredible protocol. But for thousands of other people after us, and for the information that is now out there because of the documentary, I think has really changed a lot of people's lives. So, yeah, Kim and I did it.
Kim, is that when you became more interested in the Roundup story and the glyphosate and what Monsanto has done agriculture, or did that start before?
I think I got really passionate from Cyndi's point of view because she was like, she cooked meals from home. We both baked. We both, made our, as she said, breads and our muffins and our pancakes and all the things. And it was all real food and real ingredients. But for me, doing the protocol, I did whinge a little bit too throughout it. I did kind of do my athlete thing. And all I really wanted was a sweet potato. And I remember ringing Cyndi going, I just want a sweet potato. And she was going, you can't have a sweet potato. And I begged and begged. And then I ate half of one and then went, wasn't actually what I was really after. I think it was just, again, the mindset showed me that when you tell me I can't have something, I want it even more. But I think what really got me was, to me, it was like a reset. I mean, neither of us are really overweight, but we were carrying a few extra kilos, and I was perimenopausal
come
at the time.
on, please, for God's sake. Where are you carrying the few kilos?
We were. No, we were. We were carrying an extra few kilos. Nothing bad. You wouldn't have looked at us and gone, geez, they're overweight. But for us and for me, you have to remember, I've also done body sculpting. I played netball to a high level. I've run for Australia. So to me, my level of my body at its best is probably a little bit higher. And that's not an ego thing. Just I have a way higher expectation of myself. And that's when I really understood the power of ketosis and going into, Cyndi and I still talk about it to this day, like on about day 8, 9, or 10, I can't remember. I just remember feeling like she'd had it happen the week before, and I was like, whatever. And then I had this utopia feeling of clarity. And I just watched this documentary with Chris Hemsworth talking about ketosis. And I learned that the reason why when our body is deprived of certain nutrients, and particularly if you look at it from an anthropological point of view, when we would hunt and gather, and the food wasn't as abundant through certain periods, perhaps through the winter period, the weight that we put on through the summer period with extra carbohydrates and fruits actually allowed us to use that body weight to function. And when I saw what happened when you go into ketosis, the clarity, the mind, the vision and everything, that I learnt was also about the hunter-gatherer, that you had clarity for these 3 or 4 days to actually go out and be really attuned to seeing an animal move or to seeing plants that you hadn't seen in the past. It gives you such clarity. I think I've explained that right, Cyndi, but it was like that clarity just blew me away.
But when it comes to keto diet, is your vision that the keto diet is helping weight loss, which obviously it does. I don't think anybody disputes that it causes weight loss. And if you want to lose weight, it's great opportunity. But are you proposing, because I think the jury is out and there's not a lot of data out there to link that if you follow keto diet, you are going to reduce your risk of A, cardiac disease, B, cancer, C, dying. In other words, it's something that is good to lose weight. Now you can infer, you can say it's indirectly. If you're losing weight, I'm healthy, and that might translate in something else. But I think there's one thing of telling people if you do keto diet, you're going to have less or fewer heart attacks. If you do keto diet, you are likely to live longer. If you do a keto diet, you're not going to have cancer. Versus if you have keto diet, you're going to lose weight and be fit. So how do you, maybe I'll start with Cyndi, like when you, because you believe in that, but when people ask you, you have to provide a concrete answer to your beliefs and explain why.
So let's look at anthropologically wise, and Kim was alluding to this. So when there were times where there was no food available, let's just go through winters and summers. So in the summer, there was saturated fat available because the animals were fat, because they had lots to eat. We had sweet fruits. We put the two together, we go into a state of insulin resistance. That was what we did. But it was acute insulin resistance that allowed triglycerides to go into deposits in the body because there was enough food, and we would put on weight. So this was the summer. Then when the winter came, the animals may not have had enough food to eat. There were no fruits around. Let's say all the summer tropical fruits were gone. There might have been some citrus, but not sweet fruits. And depending on where you lived in the world, like you could live in the equator and all you'd get is blubber. You could live at 14,000 feet and you had yaks and you were herders. Or you could live in the desert of Namibia and be a himba. And you basically are eating wild animals, and there's not a lot of grass and foods available to you. So it depended where you live in the world. But in general, this is what happened. So then when the winter came, the foods weren't available. You used your fat stores in order to survive. So your fat stores, if you didn't have enough carbohydrates, would put you into a state of ketosis. Ketosis sets the brain going strong. Like it really, really makes you adventurous and full of life. That means you would have gone and chased those animals. Whereas when you're eating lots of carbohydrates, you kind of got little casual and you just want to sit back. Well, that's where the fruit was. You don't want to be an adventurous person. You wanted to sit under that tree and eat that fruit, or where that plant was, because plants don't move. Animals move. So for me, I don't agree with ketosis all the time. I believe we go in and out cyclically. I believe we gain weight, then we lose weight. And it's not big amounts and little amounts, big amounts down. It is a cyclical manner that we have done in order to survive throughout the ages. So when people say to me, oh, will that make me not have heart disease or cancer or diabetes? There are other factors that we need to look at. But looking anthropologically at how we ate, that's how I do things. So I will eat carbohydrates. I have a farm. I have at the moment nectarines just starting to come out. We're going into summer. My bananas, I've just picked a whole bunch of bananas from the farm. I've got strawberries and raspberries and mulberries, and blackberries are about to come. All my flowers are coming in. So I will eat the fruit on my farm because that's local, seasonal, clean. There's no chemicals on my farm. And I know not everybody can do this, but maybe we can do it at the farmer's market. So for me, when and by the way, going into ketosis can be done many ways. It's not just about eating meat and fat. It can be less calories. Ketosis is a state. It's not a diet. And everybody says, oh, that's the ketogenic diet. No, it's a state to be in ketosis. It's not a diet.
No, that's a good point. I mean, it's not easy though, Kim, right? I mean, it's not like an easy thing to, because you have to be disciplined, like you said, to be able to accomplish the ketosis state. It's not the easiest diet. I'm pretty sure once you're used to it and becomes a habit, it becomes easier and easier to follow. If you're a believer in a concept, whether it's ketosis or something else, how do you told me how you let people think of the goal and what the values that you care about, so you have something to look forward to. What other tricks do you have to keep people on track, and to give them that mental power that they need?
I think it's really important to understand their motivation. What is the reason why you want to do this? And
I want to have a six pack. You know that about me. I want to have a six pack. So far, I have only one pack. Let me tell you, that's it. That's all I got.
I've got a beautiful one pack too. Um, but I think that what's really important is to understand your reason why. And for many of us, we have a belief that we can or can't do something. And so if you have a belief that I'm big boned, or I've got the genetics that my mum had, so she could never lose weight. And if you go into life with that attitude, then you're potentially going to create experiences that prove you right. But I've looked at a lot of the Auschwitz movies and any concentration camp. You don't see big boned people in there. You don't see people that have overweight issues. So it's never about the genetics necessarily, or the belief structure. It's actually understanding how your body works. And I think that's what I love about Cyndi. She gives you a reason why. It's not just do this because I say it's good. It's do this, and this is what can occur, and this is how the body works. And if you have an understanding, I'll give you an example. My daughter was a top ballerina, and she didn't eat meat either. It's not that I didn't give it to her or anything. I wanted her to eat meat, but she was getting skinnier and skinnier and skinnier the more she trained, and she wasn't getting the leap. She wasn't getting the aptitude. She wasn't being able to hold her pirouettes and all of these different things. And then it took one of her teachers to pull her aside and say, Taylor, we're worried about your weight. We're worried about you. And so we rang Cyndi, and Cyndi explained why protein, why young women need meats and animal proteins and things like that, particularly as they're developing, particularly with their menstrual cycle. The minute she explained to Taylor why, she got it and she started eating meat straight away. So I just so come back to understand why you want to do something is to actually neurologically link in with your values, your motivation being towards a goal, not away from pain or away from gaining weight or away from not being sick, but more towards living a life of health and wellness and trusting this incredible body,
But
understanding.
you're also highlighting the value of education, right? Like
Yes,
Cyndi educated Tyler, and communication. She
yes.
communicated with her effectively.
And also, you're right. Taylor had a lot of respect for Cyndi and wanted to understand that. It would be very hard to believe any one of us talking about health and well-being if we were all sitting here morbidly obese or with massive skin conditions or looking terribly unfit. So I think it's about walking your talk, living your truth, being your honest self. And that's not saying that Cyndi and I don't have a whiskey every now and again, or have dessert, or we had hot chips the other day on her birthday and we were laughing. Someone messaged me when I put it on Facebook and they went, "Do you two actually eat hot chips?" I'm just like, wow, we are not these people
Well,
that say you should live a certain way and not live it ourselves.
I could have totally said that about the whiskey. I could tell that about you both. But actually, I really want to talk a little bit about more like practical things, because I know we can. I think people sometimes are just like, I mean, for example, you mentioned the hot chips. I mean, so can I have dessert every so often? I mean, look, at the end of the day, let's face it. I mean, none of us is immortal. I mean, none of us, no matter what. I mean, maybe Kim, but but I mean, reality is, I mean, I don't think any of us is going to live forever, no matter how healthy we are. So there is I mean, we live once. I mean, there are three things I love. I'm gonna tell you what they are, and you're gonna hate me after this. It's gonna be the over. I love French fries. I love French fries. Not the truffle one, regular one. I love French fries. I do love ice cream. And I don't eat much red meat, so I've done a good job there. I mean, I maybe once a month, if any. I do like the chicken and the fish, but I do have a sweet tooth after dinner. Like I like to have a fruit after dinner, and I know it's sugar and I shouldn't have it as. So tell me about fries, ice cream, and fruit, especially after dinner. And the fourth thing, I don't know how you're going to split this, but it's becoming very hard in the US, honestly, to have the food like what Cyndi is doing in the farm. I mean, yes, there's a farmer's market. Sometimes you have to look for all of this stuff, but it is truly, truly increasingly difficult and challenging because you know that pesticides and herbicides are just sprayed all over, all over. It's becoming literally impossible. Even when you go and try to get some, it's just, unless you really seek out the farmer's market, that's usually like 2 hours once a month or it's just, you can't find this. So it's the reality that we live in. You're lucky to be able to do that, but I can honestly tell you it's not easy because I want to be able to do that, but like, what are you going to do? This is what you have. This is the supply that you have. You're almost forced to use the supply that you have. Lot of question in one question. We can start with these things that because the holidays, people are going to have dessert, ice cream, and some cake and all that good stuff.
I think it's about quality. And as the last thing that you talked about was, how do I get the quality foods? There is an incredible movement in the US at the moment. And the reason I know about it is that I'm part of that movement in Australia, and I know it's growing in America. So you have farmers that are saying no to the chemicals and the spraying, and they are available, and you can buy meat online. You can buy food online. You don't have to find a farmer's market. You look for this movement in the US, which is regen farming. It's called regenerative farming. I follow a heap of them online. A friend of mine was just over there in Wyoming, I believe it was, at a huge conference of these regenerative farmers. So if you want to find it, you will find it. And if you want to support these incredible people, this is who we need to support. So they're called community supported agricultural boxes, basically CSA, and they're known all around the world. So you can buy your dairy out from there, you can buy your meats from there, your chickens, your eggs, and you can buy your fruits and vegetables. They're there. And when somebody says to me they're not, they say that here where I live. And yet we have incredible farms here. To me, it's just, you're not prepared to just take a little bit of time to educate yourself to find them. That's number one. Number two, fries. Nothing wrong with fries if they're cooked properly. Yeah, if they're cooked properly. So I don't support vegetable oils. I don't support the cottonseed oil, the soya oil, the canola oil, the rapeseed oil, all of those refined oils, I don't. But we can buy chips here. And there is an app, by the way, and it's an app that says that the restaurant does not use vegetable oils. It will use lards and tallows and good quality like avocado oil or something like that. So you can have chips, but why not have quality chips? Why go to a chip? And America is the worst for this. I've been following Food Babe in the US, and she really picks the ingredients apart. So you can go to the famous M and buy chips with 14 to 17 ingredients. Or you can go to someone who's cooking chips with tallow and salt. Done. Potatoes are there. It's not hard. The same with dessert. So I remember my mum made dessert every night of our life. We had chocolate chip cookies. She was American from Iowa. We had chocolate chip cookies in the cookie bin all the time. So we ate sugar. We didn't have the diseases we have today. Sugar's not the problem. It's all the fake ingredients and all the fake sugars that we have out there. So if you're going to make a dessert, make it with real food. Don't buy it from, can I say, Sarah Lee, who doesn't put any good food in there. I don't see anything good in Sarah Lee or lean cuisine and things like that. So have a good quality dessert. Like, what's wrong with panna cotta that's made the old-fashioned way, which is basically gelatin and something, depending on what you want, with a bit of sugar in it. I don't have an issue with sugar. I have an issue with all the additives, preservatives, flavorings, acidity regulators, all of those I have the issue with. So that's your sugar. And as far as your fruit goes, after you go to after your dinner, there's nothing wrong with a good piece of fruit after dinner. And I'll tell you why. Because it increases serotonin. Serotonin is your sleeping hormone. Proteins at night sometimes get you a little bit too active. So to me, if you are going to have a protein at night, have it early and then have your piece of fruit before you go to bed. And that increases serotonin in your brain. We see this in science. It's the food-mood connection, and it shows how protein increases brain activity and serotonin, or sugars, carbohydrates, decreases brain activity. Yeah,
this is so helpful. This is truly very helpful. I mean,
quality.
Kim, do you really? I mean, look, I mean, for those who are listening, it is true. Sugar and all of this thing have existed forever. It's not like, sugar just came in the year 2023. But obesity is increasing everywhere in the world. The US is obviously probably number one. I mean, we're approaching, I think, 36 or 38% are either morbidly obese or obese using the body mass index criteria. Do you believe that this is all, because you look at pictures 30 years ago and now, they're really different. The body habitus is very different. There's got to be food and what they put in food, no? I mean, what else could cause this?
Well, you only have to look. If you're going to be a Formula One racing car driver, you ain't going to put cheap petrol into that car in order for it to perform well. And I guess they're the same analogy. And so for me, it comes back to some very basic principles. I'm not an expert in nutrition. I'm a biohacker. I will try many different things to see, because I'm a different person every week, every day, every month, every year. And as we age, we also need to take into effect different things that can affect our health and well-being. So I just have some practical go-tos. And again, I'm not an expert. This is nothing fancy or anything. I've got no science behind it. But some of the things that I do, definitely real food. That's one thing I have learned. If it's not real ingredients, I used to take my kids when they were little into the supermarket, if we'd go in there, and I would say if it has the number 951 or 621, then we ain't having it. And so they learnt from a young age, if they turned over that thing and saw either of those, 951, which is aspartame, or 621, which is MSG, which was in most children's foods, by the way, they couldn't have it. And I'd just go, oh, that's a shame. That's not for us. And so I taught them just those two ingredients. So to me, it was real food. And I love our farmers markets. So that makes me feel good. Now, I don't have a farm, but I love to grow my herbs, my capsicum, my lettuce, just little things in my little urban garden out the back. And to go out there and pick my leaves, or to put herbs, all those macro and phytonutrients on a meal that I make, I just feel so, you just feel so good in doing it. You feel quite, I don't know, I remember at school growing beans, and we used to get excited when we saw the bean germinate. And to understand the principle of food and how it's growing also will have you want to eat better when you understand when it's not. For me, Sundays are meal prep days. I roast my beautiful organic pumpkin I've got from the markets. I get together different leaves. I have my fruit so that when it comes to eating, it's already prepared and it's easy. So to me, meal prepping is an absolute go-to for me, especially when I'm busy, and particularly when I had children. They were a part of that as well, so that they had good food. We'd bake things for the lunchbox, put it in the freezer so they could take out a muffin or a muesli bar or a bliss ball or whatever it was that I made. The other thing I live by is the slow revolution: seasonal, local, organic, and whole, as much as I can. So we love to eat slow: seasonal, local, organic, and whole, as much as we possibly can. Or if it's not organic, at least it's spray-free, herbicide-free, pesticide-free, because a lot of companies and markets and farmers don't necessarily get the organic certification, but they can certainly say that they're spray-free. Another thing that I'm very, very big on is our environmental factor. So if you really do want to lose weight or be at your best, you actually have to look at what you put onto your body as well. So skincare, shampoos, body lotions, personal care products, many of those could be making you fat because they have things in there called obesogens, which come from things like phthalates and sodium lauryl sulfate. Any endocrine disrupting chemicals in there will affect the way that you metabolize food, will affect the way that you metabolize the sunlight. It affects so much of us, and yet we think nothing of lathering ourselves in hundreds of chemicals a day. And you only have to look at the infertility rate. And I question what perfumes and deodorants and all of these things are doing as far as relationships even are concerned, because we're letting go of our natural pheromones that allow us to smell our partners. Now we're bombarded with all these chemicals, and I just question why the divorce rate's 1 in 3 down under. That's another thing.
I was thinking how long is gonna take Kim before she goes there, and it took you a while until you went there. I was
She
thinking
did
like I thought you were gonna go there like first 5 minutes, but it took you a while.
Well, to me, the chemicals have a big thing to play. And
No,
that's
of
why
course.
I love using plant oils, beautiful. There's so many gorgeous things like essential oils and shea butters and coconut oil. I love to go from my bathroom to my kitchen. If I run out of something in either place, I can go to either place for what I need. That's how I love to look at it.
I love that.
And then finally, self-care is obviously a very big part of what I teach. Daily rituals, micro moments of mindfulness, breath work, meditation, grounding, watching the sunrise, understanding the circadian rhythms. And I think there's one more, there's one of the big things that Cyndi has taught me. I may not be a massive campaigner or fighter out the front or whatever, but where I can fight or where I can stand up for what I believe in is where I spend my money. And so if I can choose to spend my money supporting the people that Cyndi was talking about, people like what we all believe in, that is me being an advocate for a better world for future generations, not just us, but I want to look after the people who actually really care. So there's just some of the things that I look at that really are a part of our everyday. And they're simple. There's no science behind it really, but it's practical.
That's
She's
amazing.
amazing.
You know,
She's amazing.
yeah, no, that's really amazing. In the last just few minutes, you've been very generous with your time, and I'm sure listeners and viewers have a lot to think about after this. I'm going to ask you both the same question. So, Cyndi, what is the uh, weirdest, strangest? That's one category. And second, the most common question you get asked during your seminar. Give me the most common question you get asked, and then the strangest thing that you actually were asked in your career? And then the same question, Kim, get ready, the same question for you.
Oh, wow. The most common question. What
And
do
the
I eat?
strangest.
Yeah. I think the most common is, what do I eat? Now you've told me all of this food that has been told to me by my government and by advertising and by the food standards and by all of this. You've just told me all that food's bad. What do I eat? I would say that's probably the number one question. People get confused when they listen to me. But it's, as Kim said, it's real food. We just have to go back to basics. So that would be that one. I think they can't understand. They just think I'm lucky that I've never had any medications. And so they question me as to how that could be possible. But I have kids in their 30s. My kids are in their 30s. They've never had medications. And I have grandchildren who have never had medications. So I don't think it's about luck. I think it is about education, understanding, just understanding how our body is this incredible, not innate intelligence that knows what to do. So yeah, I would say that number one is, what do I eat now? And number two is, it's a questioning of, you can't be serious, you're just lucky. And many doctors call me lucky. It's not. This is about really taking responsibility for your health. And if you take responsibility for your health, you'd go the whole way. That's the way I feel. Your turn, Kimmy. I hope you've got some good ones.
Your turn, Kimmy.
I think one of the most common things that we get is, does it really make a difference? And I think one of the greatest things where I get my clients to do, so I always say this, being healthy, eating well, being the best that you can, going back to basics, all the things that I just mentioned. I want you to go out. If you didn't do any of that and you stayed the way you are, because if you keep doing what you've always done, you'll keep getting what you've always got. And as we know, if you keep repeating things, things aren't going to change. So I say, if you're not willing to change, I want you to go out a day from now. How do you look, feel, and think? Go out a month from now, a year from now. By the time we get to 5 and 10 years, people are saying to me, I'm sick, I'm in hospital, it's costing me millions. not just thousands. This is costing me millions in health. This is costing my relationship. This is costing my mental health and well-being. By the time you go out 10 years, if you haven't made a change, and just take it slowly all the way out, you will find I actually have people moved to tears about the fact that if they don't make a decision here and now and start making change for the better, then we go out the other way. One day from now, I've stopped eating processed foods. 1 week from now, how am I feeling? I'm thinking clearer. I'm feeling better. 1 month from now, gosh, I've started to notice I've got more energy. A year from now, my cycle is back into rhythm. I'm actually waking early. 2 years from now, I'm happier. I'm a better mum. I'm a better person. 5 years from now, I've got energy. I've just launched my first business because I'm so passionate about it. 10 years from now, oh my gosh, I'm making millions because I'm doing what I want. So I think the biggest, silliest thing is that we think that today doesn't make a difference. This moment right here, right now, is a determining factor for the rest of your life. Don't take it lightly.
Well, I don't think we can have a better ending to this podcast than this, can we, Cyndi? I mean, this is really, I can totally imagine how you both really together in a seminar, and it's just wonderful to see. I think we have a lot to think about with what you said. I'm pretty sure that we need to probably do another podcast to go a little bit more into more detail. But this was a flavor of what you both are doing and what you recommend to people and patients. So thank you so much for doing that. And thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you,
Thank
Chadi.
you.